The timing certainly seems fortuitous. As President Barack Obama holds his nuclear security summit in Washington this week, Donald Trump indicates he might be willing to use nukes on European soil if the situation became necessary. America and its allies are tossing out hot air, demanding North Korea ratchet down the nuclear issue. And European investigators now more worried than ever that ISIS killers will get their hands on enough nuclear material to kill tens of thousands in one strike. The truth behind all this is a lot more complicated than you might imagine. So we turn here. Pleasure to bring back the Shillman Senior Fellow for the Investigative Project on Terrorism, author of Architects of Disaster, and former chair of the House Intelligence Committee, Pete Hoekstra. Always a pleasure, Pete. Let's go ahead and dive right in here. And I want to start with what Donald Trump said when he talked about nukes being used in Europe. You could hear people gasping, going, my God, how could you actually do that? But in essence, when he talks about not taking cards off the table from a moral or any standpoint, from a negotiating standpoint, people who know what happens with these negotiations and nuclear footing, has he got a point?
I think he's got a point when you put it in the context saying, I'm not going to limit my options. We have a nuclear arsenal. And, you know, if we ever reach the horrific situation where we might need to use a nuke in Europe, it will be on the table. It sends a clear message. It's a message that America has been sending for a long period of time. There's really nothing new in this statement.
Okay, nothing new in this statement then, but is it politically smart then for a guy who will have his finger on the button at this point to say that out loud to the other allies, because they also have to worry about their people and everything else that happens in negotiations and dealing with this president?
No, I don't think it's a smart thing for him to come out and say it. I think these are the kinds of things that, you know, demonstrate that Donald Trump hasn't recognized yet how difficult foreign policy is, what our allies are looking for. You know, after 8 years of total disruption in American foreign policy because of Barack Obama, where he really did blow up much of our foreign policy, you know, the patterns and the beliefs and the relationships that we had for 25, 30 years, he blew them up. Now they're seeing Donald Trump maybe doing the same kind of things. What they're looking for is they're looking for stability from their closest ally, the United States of America, regardless of whether it's a Republican and a Democrat in the White House. They want some kind of consistency in foreign policy. They recognize it'll be different from Republican to Democrat, but they don't want to see wild swings in foreign policy.
When we talk about wild swings, when the president and others basically tell North Korea, you better ratchet down your nuclear arsenal, come on. Is there any real meat behind this at all? I don't see any.
No, there hasn't been any meat behind our policy toward North Korea. They just keep marching on towards better missile technology, enhanced nuclear weapons capability, and all of these types of things. The bottom line is the only way you're going to put pressure and get meat into those kinds of statements is if you bring China along with you. China has the leverage over North Korea. No one else really does.
They are worried after the Brussels attacks about what may happen with ISIS. Investigators say some of the suspects in the attacks videotaped the comings and goings of a top Belgian nuclear scientist. We are now sitting in a different world, Pete. Is it possible? Well, let me stop. Of course it's possible, but how possible is it that ISIS is right now focusing on that they're trying to find fissionable material somewhere and get their hands on it?
Well, all the indications are that they want to create bigger and bigger attacks. They'll take these isolated events of 30 people in Belgium, 130 in Paris, but if they could pull off something big and spectacular, they want to do it. And Europe and the United States are providing them the window of opportunity to actually do it, because we're not serious about confronting the threat. As long as they have a caliphate in Syria and in Iraq and Libya, they have the means and the ability to put together the preparations for that kind of an attack.
I got about a minute left here, Pete. I talked about fissionable material, not necessarily making a weapon here, a bomb, if you will, a dirty bomb, something small, just having enough material to basically create chaos and kill tens of thousands. How much fissionable material is there out there in the world and we don't know where it is?
Oh, I think there's a tremendous amount out there when you put it in regards to how much you actually need to have to make a bomb that can have the kind of results that you're talking about. There's plenty of that material floating around, and there's a lot of that material that we have no idea where it is.
How much material are we talking about? Ounces, pounds?
I don't know the specific amounts. I don't remember going back to my days on the Intel committee. All I know is that we consistently were briefed in saying this material is out there. It may be available. It doesn't take a lot to get the kind of results that you're talking about.
That's the key. It doesn't take a lot. It can be very small, and there's a lot of this floating around countries like Pakistan and Iraq, correct?
There's a lot floating around North Korea, Pakistan, Iran, people that might be willing to give it to these terrorist organizations, or where they have some connection where they maybe can identify it and raid for it and actually get it.
There's the key. The people who are willing to work with the killers, which means we have another link in the chain that we've got to get to every single day. Pete Hoekstra, always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks so much for joining us. Hillary Clinton, mad as hell, not going to take it anymore. She may have this one dead on. First up and a whole lot more coming up next in The Political Animal right here on The Hard Line.